What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to do a long overdue project. It's one of the first projects a lot of guys with Tundras do, and it is the wireless charging tray. I actually have a DIY wireless charging tray in my truck right now. It cost me like 30 bucks. It was just something temporary I did, but now that we have wireless Apple CarPlay in the truck, which if you missed that video, I'll put a link up above for you. Check it out. We have wireless CarPlay now, so the phone no longer has to be plugged in. We're going to go ahead and install the OEM Toyota charger. All right, it seems like a very straightforward and easy install. So basically all you get in the box is the charger itself. You get the power cord, you get some zip ties and a little bracket, which I'll give you a better look at that and show you where it goes, and you get a user manual. All right, so this project isn't going to take long at all. I'll show you exactly what you have to do to get it done, and hopefully this thing is as good as everybody says it is. So let's get into it. All right, so to get this done, first thing you want to do is disconnect the negative side of your battery. Even though this outlet does not get power while the truck is off, you're still working with the electrical. It's just smart to disconnect the negative side of the battery. I've already done that. You just need a 10 millimeter socket to loosen up the nut on the side of the terminal. It pops right off the negative side. Tuck it down on the side of the battery so it cannot make contact before you get this started. You're only going to need a couple tools to get this project done. Basically just a plastic pry tool, Phillips head screwdriver, whether you're going to use a drill or a handheld, doesn't really matter, and that's just about it. So first things first, after you disconnect the negative side of the battery, we have to pop this back panel off. In order to do that, there's grooves that run along the side. You just get your plastic pry tool. Now I do have the cover open there. I'm not sure if you need to or not, to be honest, but I just did it just to be kind of give myself a little bit more wiggle room. So you just kind of have to get your plastic pry tool in that groove, and as you can see, it'll start popping off for you. So let me get this other side freed up. I like using plastic, obviously, so nothing gets scratched. I'm sure if you had a metal one, you can use it. Just be careful so you don't scratch your panel here. So now that we have both sides kind of freed up, it should just kind of pop right off there, which it does. And then you'll see there is a wiring harness that runs right here to that cigarette lighter. All right, you can't miss it. It's the only one right there. So all you're going to do is disconnect the plug that goes into the cigarette lighter there. And then there's two clips that hold this power cable in place. You're just going to pop them out of there. And then you'll have your power cable. That'll be loose just like that. So I'm going to set that aside. That's disconnected. Now we have to remove the panel here to actually install the wireless charger. In order to do that, there is some Phillips head screws. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm just going to go ahead and take those out. So when you're going to remove the last one, just make sure you support the panel, because once you remove this the last screw here, as you're going to see, the panel is now free. So just make sure you're supporting it. So we brought this piece inside. Once you have it off the truck, just makes it a little bit easier. Make sure you put it on a soft surface so you don't scratch it. Next step is to remove the handle. There's only 2 Phillips head screws holding that in. Pops off just like that. And then we have to remove this cover, which is held on by a bunch of Phillips head screws. I'm not exactly sure how many. I'll count them as I remove them, and this cover will pop off. So just work your way around. These are tiny screws, so just be careful you don't lose them. They're very small. Another reason why you probably want to do this inside on a flat surface. That way if you drop one, you can very easily find it. All right, so there's 16 of these little screws that I counted. There's the last one, and then this cover will pop right off just like that. Don't mind this cable. You're not going to have this cable. This is actually from that do-it-yourself charger that I mentioned. So we'll just go ahead and set that aside. You can see this is the do-it-yourself charger that I had in there. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect that. Once you have that cover off, you now have access to this middle piece here. And in order to remove that, there are some more silver screws that you have to take out here. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it looks like. So go ahead and remove those silver screws, and that'll allow this middle piece to pop right out. Okay, so I only had 6 holding this piece in place. Once you remove those silver screws, this piece is going to pop right out of there. Now, I have a custom badge right here. Whatever badge you have, you're obviously just going to have to go ahead and remove that. You might want to use some kind of like a low setting on a heat gun or hair dryer because it is stuck there with double backing tape. I actually had multiple when I had these made by TRD Beast. I had a few of them made, so I actually just put a new one on the charging tray that's going to be going in. I'll get that one off there, but I'll worry about that later on. So make sure you take your badge off and transfer it over to the charger. You can set this aside. We're now done with that piece. The only other screw you're going to have to remove is this one right here, and I'll show you why. That's where this bracket that's in your little pack, your little hardware pack with the zip ties, that's where this bracket's going to go. So this screw back here, this one, you have to go ahead and take that off. Once you have that removed, you can take your charger, set it down in the spot of where the other piece was that we removed. There's a couple tabs that help you kind of line it up, make sure it's in the correct position. And I'm going to go ahead and put the 6 screws back in the charger to hold that in place, and we'll move on to running the wire with that bracket. One thing I'll mention, guys, I use my drill for the most part, but I don't tighten any of these screws back down with my drill. I will switch over to the handheld and snug them up with the handheld. That way you don't have to worry about over tightening anything. You're dealing with basically plastic here, so you don't want to over tighten anything and strip anything or, you know, damage any of these pieces. So just take your handheld, screw them up. You know, you don't have to go crazy again. You're just dealing with plastic. All right, so the charger is now held in there. Let's flip it around and take a look. So you can see right there, fits very well. Obviously, it's a Toyota OEM piece. Okay. So the next step is running this cable. What you want to do, again, this screw that we took out, what you're going to want to do is take the cable that's coming out of the charger, bring it over this way, and there's kind of a channel. You can't miss it. I know you can't really see it well on the camera, but there's a little bit of a channel in here, and that's all you're going to do. So you're going to want to put a zip tie, which they do send you a few. And don't snug these up just yet either. Just kind of put them on loose until you have everything in place. So I'm just going to take one of the zip ties, put it around this bar here. Again, I'm just going to have it kind of loose for right now, just to hold it in place to make sure everything fits the way it should. And now where that bracket comes into play, so this screw that you removed right here, let me get the camera a little bit closer. So you're going to take the power wire coming off the charger, bring it down, and on the inside of this piece right here, hopefully you can see this a little better now that I have it closer, there's a channel. And again, I know you can't see the channel, but you can't miss it. There's a channel that goes back in here. So what you do is you have to run the power cable, and I'll take a couple pictures, put them on your screen for you as well. You have to run the power cable down in between the silver piece and the black piece, and then you take your bracket that they send you. It's got a little bit of double backing tape on it. So let me just get that off there. Actually, let me just kind of measure it up first before we do anything there. And all you're going to do is put this bracket into place like this. And that's gonna, you just want to make sure that clears, which it does. And that's going to be what holds your power cable in that channel so it doesn't get caught up on this piece here. Okay, so let me just go ahead and remove that double backing tape. And as you can see, there's grooves right here that go over. There's a little pin there and also that screw that you removed. So let me just go ahead and get this in place. Just make sure your holes are lined up. And just kind of eyeball it as you're pushing this in with the double backing tape. Make sure that power cord is still in that channel so you don't pinch it in between anywhere, which it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and push my bracket in place. The double backing tape is going to hold it up here on this end, and then we're going to go ahead and put that screw back in right down here on that end. And then I will put another, I'm going to put a zip tie right here as well, just to make sure it's kind of snugged up tight to that channel. So I'm just going to hold this double backing tape for a few seconds, make sure it's stuck nice and good. And then we'll go ahead and put this screw back in this spot here. All right, so now your cable is run through. Let me get another zip tie right here. So I'm going to have a zip tie on each side of that silver screw, holding the cable in place. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to make them too tight. I'm just going to kind of snug them up. And that way I don't have to worry about them really going anywhere. And that power cable is held in there nice and secure. I don't have to worry about it getting pinched. And before I do anything else, I'm also just going to do this just to make sure everything clears, which it does. So as long as everything clears like that, you're good to go. On the other side, this is where the power cable should come out. Hopefully this turns out in the video, but you can see there's a little bit of a groove right here. So when you run it down through that channel, it's going to pop out in between the spring and this black piece here. Okay, that's how it's going to look on coming out the back side. All right, so now we're ready to put the cover back on, the handle back on, and we'll head back out to the truck. I'm not going to show that on camera. You're just going to reverse your steps, use all the screws, put the cover back into place, put the handle back into place, and we're ready to move out to the truck. As you can see, we got the cover back on, the handle's back on, and this piece is now completed. So let's head back out to the truck and finish up the install. All right, so we're back on the truck. You're just going to take your wire harness that comes with the charger, and this white piece, as you can see, it has a little connector that's obviously going to run to the charger, and then the other end it has an inline fuse, and the other end has a white connection, and then this connection here that's wrapped in foam. The white connection is going to go to the back of your cigarette lighter. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug that in. And then you're going to take your factory harness from Toyota that was in the cigarette lighter, and you're going to plug that into the piece that's in the foam. Okay, and then that's how that connects. And then once we get the center console piece back on, this is going to connect to your charger. Next step is to reinstall the center console piece. So we're just going to line it up where it has to go. And just be careful. There are a couple vents right here. So just be careful with these screws here. I'm just going to try to get this middle one started. That should hold the thing in place. And just be very careful if you drop one of these screws down those vents. You might even want to cover them up with something or shove something down in there. Because if you drop one of them screws down in those vents, it might be very difficult to get out. So I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall these 8 screws here. Take my handheld and just snug them up. Before we go any further, I just want to show you something. I did add a zip tie right here. So when you're looking at the back of this thing, this is how it should look. That the power cable coming from the charger should be between the spring and this black piece. And I did add a zip tie right there, right above that black piece, as you can see. Okay, that makes sure that you don't want this power cable popping out of this groove here and coming down on the side, because when you open the lid, it'll get pinched. Okay, so that's very important. I just wanted to point that out. I did add a zip tie right there now that I'm looking at it. All right, so basically all that's left to do is connect the charger wire and zip tie everything up. All right, so as you can see, I made my last connection. The wireless, the power cord coming from the charger connects to that last little connection right here. I'm just going to go ahead and zip tie these wires up. We'll pop this cover back on. Again, it's just held in by those pop clips. As you're doing it, just kind of pay attention, make sure nothing's getting pinched back and down here. And again, I'm going to zip tie, put a couple zip ties in here just to keep everything nice and neat. But as you're popping this cover back on, just, you know, watch down in there, make sure everything's going to clear okay, and then we'll go ahead and test this charger out. All right, we got everything zip tied nice and neat. That back cover is put back on. Negative side of the battery is hooked back up. So let's fire the truck up and see what we got. Make sure it's all working. So when we fire it up, it should, yeah, it's cycling through the colors, which is what it said in the user manual. So you saw it flashed red, green, or I'm sorry, red, blue, and now it's green. Green means it's in standby mode. It basically just means it's ready to charge. So let's pop the phone on there. And as you can see, the charging pops right up. The light turns blue, meaning it's charging, which is awesome. The only other thing you're gonna wanna do is take some kind of cigarette plug or whatever you have, and make sure that the 12-volt outlet back here is working. This has a blue light on it, so when I plug it in back here, I should be able to tell, yep, the blue light came right on, so my socket back here is working properly. Oh, my wireless CarPlay's firing up. So I don't know why I didn't do this sooner, guys. This thing is pretty neat. The other thing I like about it too is the fact that the one thing I did not like about the DIY phone charger that I did, again, it was cheap. It only cost me 25, 30 bucks. It charged the phone, but it was the OEM piece in here, and my phone slid around while I was driving. This Toyota charger, these little lines in here, you can tell they're like grippy, like they're like rubbery. So they're gonna kind of hold the phone in place. The phone's not gonna slide around as easily. I'm gonna have to see, it might slide just a little bit, but it's not gonna slide anywhere near as bad as it did with that DIY charging thing that I had set up. So definitely recommend doing this, guys. It's super easy to do. The only other thing I'm going to mention, which it does say in the user manual, make sure when you have the charger on, which you can turn this charger off. So let's say you don't want your phone charging for whatever reason, you can hit this button right here and you can see all the lights go out. Charger is now off. If this charger is on, make sure you don't put anything metal in here or coins or anything like that. It could damage the charger, it could make it overheat, and it just won't function properly. So again, don't put anything metal in here if the charger is on. If you have it off, it's okay to do. If it's on, no metal in there. All right, so just keep that in mind. I appreciate you guys watching. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care.